on the Newsmaker hotline right now, Congressman Tom Price, the vice chair of the House Budget Committee. Yesterday, the Republicans in the House released a plan to balance the budget in 10 years. Dr. Price, thank you so much for joining us here. We appreciate it.
Good morning. Great to be with you.
All right, look, before we get into the Democratic plan, I just have to run this little clip from the president, where the president talked about the priorities in the budget that he foresees. Take a listen.
My goal is not to chase a balanced budget just for the sake of balance. My goal is how do we grow the economy, put people back to work, and if we do that, we're going to be bringing in more revenue. If we've controlled spending and we've got a smart entitlement package, then potentially what you have is balance, but it's not balance on the backs of the poor, the elderly, students who need student loans, families who've got disabled kids. That's not the right way to balance our budget.
The official White House line yesterday was, we don't necessarily want a balanced budget. We want, quote unquote, a balanced approach. Your reaction, sir?
Well, the reason that we need to have balance in our budget is not just to cut spending. The reason is so that we can create greater opportunities for young people, make certain that we get this economy rolling again and creating jobs, and provide security for seniors. The fact of the matter is the president's budget was due by law to be presented to Congress by February 4th of this year. It's now March 13th. He still hasn't presented it.
But it's coming in April, we hear, right?
Yeah. I guess we're going to see it in April sometime, as he says. But the importance of budgets is to lay out the priorities that we believe are important, to provide a vision for how to solve the challenges that we face. And so we welcome the president to that discussion. The fact of the matter is, however, his vision hasn't necessarily helped get people back to work or turn this economy around. And that's where the debate ought to begin. That's where the discussion ought to begin.
Dr. Price, you heard the president also say that you shouldn't be balancing the budget on the backs of, as he put it, disabled children. Why do you hate disabled children so much, Dr. Price?
Well, the demagoguery that comes out of the White House is really unconscionable because it doesn't do anything to allow an appropriate political discourse to occur. Look, the president's current law will end Medicare as we know it, will bankrupt Medicare. The president's current law will decrease the ability of states to provide coverage for their Medicaid population. The president's current law will make it so Social Security runs out of money. These programs have to be reformed and strengthened and saved and secured, and that's what our budget does.
All right, so your plan is to balance the budget in 10 years. 10 years, that's pretty tough medicine, but many people believe it's the route we need to go. The Senate Democrats, one hears, is coming up with a plan that their solution is increase taxes by $1 trillion. Between those two positions, pretty hard to find middle ground, isn't it?
Well, I think there may be some common ground, and we look forward to the Senate Democrats' budget. Again, they haven't done one in 4 years, so it's great for them to join this discussion.
You hear a little jab there from Dr. Price?
Well, it's important for people to know that the House Republicans have been responsible. We've done our job. We look forward to the Senate budget, and if they want to raise taxes by $1 trillion, that's $1 trillion that will not be available for the private economy, for jobs to be created in the private sector. That's the consequence of increasing taxes, and to increase taxes to chase ever increasing spending here in Washington is a fool's errand. It will not turn this economy around and get jobs being created or create greater opportunity for young people. So we're excited about the budget that we're putting forward. We think it's a sound approach, a responsible approach. It saves and strengthens and secures Medicare. It provides for a fundamental tax reform that'll get this economy rolling and make us competitive in the international and the global markets. It makes certain that we address the issues that have to be addressed, like energy, to make us energy independent. So we're excited about the debate that's about to occur and look forward to the contributions from the President and the Senate.
Dr. Price, I'm glad to hear you talk about growth and opportunity linked with this budget, because I was concerned yesterday. I saw a couple of Republicans talking about it. They kept using these terms, austerity measures and austerity policies. The President uses that term to describe this. And, the American people, they hear austerity and they think, they see the images on cable news of people in Greece and France throwing Molotov cocktails because the government is taking their things away. Instead of talking about, hey, Americans, eat your vegetables, can you please explain how this balanced budget actually will get people working and how it will grow the economy?
Well, sure. It's important for people to appreciate that the president's budget of last year would have spent, if we had adhered to it, and that's the course that we're on, $46 trillion. That's $46 trillion over the next 10 years. Our budget proposes spending $41 trillion over the next 10 years. So this notion that these are draconian reductions in spending is simply nonsense. It's a slower rate of growth which allows us to get to balance. Now, the reason that balance is important is not just to have a number on a piece of paper. It's so that we can allow the economy to thrive, to get back to where creating jobs in the private sector, small businesses creating jobs, making certain that young people have much greater opportunity than they currently have. To have 50% of the young people graduating from college these days not being able to find a job either in their field or one that suits their preparation from their education is unconscionable. That's irresponsible. We need to turn that around. The way to turn that around is through private sector growth. The way to do that is to make certain that we balance the budget.
You know, we got this continuing resolution that's about to be debated in the Senate. It's being blocked for the moment, but eventually it'll come up, and they're going to debate the continuing resolution to continue funding of the government. And we hear that Ted Cruz and others are going to stand up and say, look, we are against this until, certain things happen here. And they want to defund Obamacare as part of that process. One hears that on the House side, there were some who wanted to try that approach, and that leadership said, no, that's not the right approach. Can you illuminate what happened in that discussion?
Sure. The continuing resolution is the funding of the government on the discretionary side, all non-mandatory programs. The problem that we have with the president's health care law is that the vast majority of the funding in that law is mandatory funding, and you can't get at it through a continuing resolution. We believe, however, that the president's health care law is destructive to quality health care. As a physician, I can tell you that it certainly doesn't work for patients or for docs, and that's why in our budget, which does address mandatory spending, we propose a full repeal of the president's health care law of Obamacare, because we think it's destructive to quality health care.
Well, you say you can't get at it through the continuing resolution, but that's exactly what they're going to try in the Senate.
The Senate has different rules than the House. Than the House. So that I'm not an expert on the Senate rules, and God bless them for trying. But the fact of the matter is, we
it was a heavier lift in the House, is what you're saying.
Pardon me?
It was a heavier lift in the House.
Yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't something that was going to be able to garner the support to make certain that we continue the funding at an appropriate level for the federal government through September 30th.
All right. So does that mean, Dr. Price, that you're not going to be running for Senate for the state of Georgia?
I've got to study up on those rules.
Well, then you will run.
All in due time.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Price. That's not a no.
That wasn't a no.
No, it wasn't.
We're playing that game, though, aren't we?
There you go.
All right. Well, listen, Congressman Tom Price, who's the vice chair of the Budget Committee. Dr. Price, we appreciate you joining us.
Thanks.